Okay, well,
Nice.
lovely to see you. Thank you all for coming, and it's fantastic to have Amy Charles back with us. It's been a while since she's been on speaking. I mean, she's been on the calls, but I think it might be 2 years ago. You gave us two talks about the runes, which were absolutely fascinating. And she's been doing lots of other things. Amy, do you want to just say a little bit about yourself, and I'll ask you a few questions.
Yeah. So just a bit of background about me. So I'll talk a bit about my work with the runes and research into sort of ancient Scandinavian culture and Norse mythology, and my teachings and learnings from that. But by training, like my background is in mental health, so I'm a mental health peer support worker. And I've been doing that for about 5 years. So what that looks like is offering one-to-one support or group support for people who may be going through mental health challenges or just want some general support with their well-being. And it looks like me sharing my own lived experience with mental health. So it's just a safe space for people to share like what's going on for them and to learn from one another. So yeah, that's me. And then I'm going to talk a bit about how I've combined sort of like my background with the runes stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think you told me before that with your work, you've kind of looked at different modalities that you can bring into working and how well it works, and which is fantastic. And I mean, the runes originally, how did you get into them? How did they just appear?
So as I just mentioned, so I've got experience of mental health challenges. That's just been part of my journey since I was a teenager. And back in 2018, 2019, I was going through a really challenging time, which just kind of coincided with my Saturn return, I think. So lots of astrological things going on. And I had a dream. So the guidance came in dreams. So as a bit of a side note, I've always sort of thought of myself as just somebody who has very weird dreams. So whenever I see Alan and Chrissy, I've had another weird dream. But since I was younger, so things like dreaming things and then them happening exactly as I dreamt them the next day, sometimes maybe months or years later. And it used to happen a lot when I was a child, so it was a bit confusing. And sometimes I would like receive, or it felt like guidance from guides or these characters in my dreams. So I used to believe that they were like separate from me, but now I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was just like part of my cosmic self taking on these sort of characters and giving me guidance. So I kind of put a call out to the universe when I was going through that difficult time, and it was a dream I had. A very strange figure appeared. So I have sleep paralysis quite a bit. So if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's where you're I feel like your mind's awake or you feel awake. You can look around the room, but your body's sort of trapped. You feel like you can't move. And some people see things or hear things in this experience. And I just see very strange things. So this figure appeared. He had like a long cloak and a staff and an eye patch. It was very weird. I thought I was having a psychotic break. I won't lie. I was like, what's going on? And he just was like, it's time to remember, like time to remember who you are, what you're here to do. You asked for help, so this is kind of the help you're getting. And I thought, well, I kind of was expecting more of like an angelic kind of connection, this like love and light feeling. Somebody telling me everything was going to be okay, but that was not the case. It was a bit scary. And yeah, and after that, I just sort of kept bumping into or meeting people who kept talking about the Vikings or their Scandinavian ancestry, and the Viking show was on the telly, so it was on what I was watching. So I was just kind of bombarded with this information, and a bag of runes just literally fell into my lap when I was at a friend. She's like, "Oh, do you know what these are?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not quite sure," but I just felt this connection. So and then it kind of went from there, basically. Yeah,
it's fascinating. So, I think you said you felt you'd done it before. The connection, I mean,
it did feel like that. It felt like a really strong connection to begin with. I felt like, oh, these seems really familiar. But then there was a lot of fear as well. It was a bit touch and go for about a year. I was like, oh, there's a lot of fear, and maybe is this dark energy. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. But once I'd kind of got through this fear that I was feeling, yeah, they've just revealed, well, to me, mysteries, I feel. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
been,
wonderful. I think you used them for readings, didn't you? And for
yeah, so I use them,
people for.
yeah, I use them for reading. So as part of my Runes for Wellbeing work, I use sort of like, I run groups, so it's very much like that peer support element, that safe space for people to just talk about what's going on for them. And I felt like there was more people who were wanting to explore like the spiritual side of themselves or of just life, and a safe space to share that. So I use the Elder Futhark Runes, which are an ancient Germanic alphabet and the origin of the English language or Germanic languages we speak today. But these symbols, they have like a meaning, a numerical value, as well. So there's like lots to them. So I will use these as like a tool to sort of support people to tap into, well, not tap in, but just to strengthen that intuitive voice, their listening abilities, to know, okay, what's intuition? And also, when I'm in readings, so I use that peer support element, but obviously with the runes, it's like, rather than like a tarot reading, it's more like I use them as tools for conversation, and then it kind of goes.
It's quite a lot to learn, isn't it, as you said? Because I mean, I think you're very interested in the Germanic language and the old languages. I know that's one of your main things that you're really interested in, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, well, definitely. Since I've kind of I think the last talk I did, it was in person, wasn't it? But I'm not sure if I'd got to the significance of the Norse vowels. I'm not sure if I'd started chanting those at that point. But when I first got into this, it was just the runes and learning how to listen. For me, listening to my environment, listening to my body, the energetic information I was receiving, trying to distinguish between fear-based feelings and things like that. But then I kind of, as I've delved more into this, I got the guidance to look at the 9 Old Norse vowels and the power that they have, particularly when you chant them. So yeah, that's kind of what I work with now.
So apart from, I mean, I know you continue your work with mental health, but before that, I think you were a photographer, weren't you? You did photography and making films and all sorts of exciting things. So, which I suppose in a way you maybe still do, because you do a lot with trees. And,
yeah, definitely. So for about 7 years before I got into mental health, I was freelance filmmaker, photographer, and a creative writer. So I use a lot of those mediums in the work that I do now. So it all kind of comes together. But yeah, very creative. Love to write. Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite a journey, isn't it, through all the different things? And I think the most fascinating thing is
I feel like
together. Yeah.
I feel like I've done so many different things in a very short space of time.
Isn't it? It's wonderful. And I know you've told us you go on walks and you're actually taking people on well-being walks, and sometimes you come down here to Nostell and the trees, and tell us a little bit about that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I feel like I have a very strong connection to trees. So when after that dream I had, I felt like in meditation and in my dream world, these Norse god or goddess figures or characters were kind of like my teachers in that world. But it was the trees in my waking life that became teachers for me as well. So around that similar time when I was kind of going through a difficult period, I ended up going for a walk around Nostell Priory, and I went to sit by a yew tree in the churchyard. And I remember just like talking to this tree, even though I felt a bit silly because I've never talked to a tree before. I was like, I really need some help. Like, I don't know what's going on. I really need some help, and just send me a message. And I remember like, I was very much in my head and trying to figure out, like, if you're going to send me a message, what are you going to say? And all of a sudden, I just felt like this heat come from my head to my chest area, like something was moving this energy in my body. And I felt this voice, it wasn't my voice, but it kind of was. And it just said, if you want to communicate with us, you have to come to the heart, because we do not communicate in that way. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, am I making this up? But it was like, like they really did teach me that, how powerful the heart is. And it's like, for me, it feels like a portal that connects. And I remember after this experience where I just felt this really loving energy, I felt like when I came out of it, my third eye or my imagination was just full of these images of these trees around me. And I could see these like golden threads of light coming from the center of the trees and from me as well. And we were all connected. I thought, oh wow, this is amazing. Like this current of energy. And it seemed to like synchronize, if that's the right word, with what I was learning about in Norse, like in Norse, like the Norse initiates of like the mysteries. They saw the world as like a great web, or the web of weird that was connecting all things. And I was like, oh, is that what I'm seeing? Is it a web? But yeah, so it was trees that really sort of taught me about the importance of the heart. So when I do my wellness walks, or when I first started Runes for Wellbeing, it was all outside. We were in like parks, in nature. I've been to, well, like one of my favorite places to go is Bishop Wood in Selby. I think it's quite a special place. So I've done a wellbeing walk out there. So again, it's just teaching people to listen, but you can use nature. You don't have to use the runes. So it's like just practicing as observation skills. Where can you see yourself in nature? Just connecting that to that tree energy. And sometimes amazing things come up, especially when it amazes me when people say, oh, I don't really believe in this. I'm just here for the chat and the walk. And then afterwards, like, I feel like that tree was speaking to me, or I felt like this energy come from it. That's interesting. Yeah. So
and I think anyway, in the last few years, all of this kind of well-being and being in nature and being in the forest, is it forest bathing and all this stuff has really become quite big, hasn't it? So people are,
I had to do regular forest bathing at Nostell Priory now. I went to one of those, and that was pretty nice.
So that's great. Oh, you've disappeared. Where is she?
Am I here?
Sorry, you just disappeared for a minute, then you're back now. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think, as far as I know, you kind of incorporate any meditation, obviously, is part of this, isn't it? And tuning in and linking in. And the dragons. I mean, I think quite a few people here are very interested in dragons and dragon work and so on. Do they come in sometimes? Do you get the feeling that,
Yeah, definitely. So it was Alan that introduced me to the dragons, and I kind of made that connection. I think that was about 2 years ago now. It's been a couple of years, because I know they've been present within this journey for me as I've been connecting to this ancient ancestral wisdom, I guess. And I remember the first time I connected was at Pontefract Castle. So I have a real strong connection to that area. Sometimes when I'm in meditation, if a dragon sort of appears, they will always take me somewhere else. I'm like, I mean, I don't know, it could just be in my imagination. But I feel like there's certain very powerful energy spots maybe around where we live, and I think perhaps the dragon
I mean, we've certainly been looking at ley lines and energy lines, and I know as you just said, there are these energy spots and lines and things, and so you can connect anywhere, and and kind of offer that kind of healing for yourself and for other people, which is fantastic. And I think you mentioned that you went to Arizona last year, which sounded fantastic, on a kind of shamanic journey. And
Oh, that was pretty incredible how that came about. So it's since I started this runes work, things have just happened effortlessly. So it's interesting how, I guess, when you kind of get on a certain path, things just sort of present themselves and they just happen naturally. But I remember thinking, it was a couple of years ago now, wouldn't it be amazing if I got to travel? I'd love to go to America and deliver a runes talk. But I do have a friend and a mentor who lives in America, and she's kind of helped me as well with like journey. And last year she just said, I'm delivering this retreat in Arizona. I'd really like it if you could come along. And it was kind of like all expenses paid, which was amazing. And it was pretty powerful place. So there was I think it was there was a lunar eclipse last October. Was it like Friday the 13th? There was a specific like moon activation that happened. And apparently, I don't know, you might be able to tell me this, but certain eclipses, they kind of have a port, they sort of send or activate a portal of energy in specific areas of the earth. I didn't realize, but apparently this lunar eclipse was centered in Phoenix, and people had come from all over the globe at that time to connect, specifically in Sedona, to this this energy.
Yeah, because there's the path of the eclipse, and that would have been, because I mean, the one we had recently, the big solar eclipse in America, that was Steve, who's on the call here, he went to America to be present at that eclipse. So I'm sure that was quite powerful as well. And that was the kind of, I mean, it's different with the solar eclipse, it was the path of totality there, but obviously where you were was, again, there is a pathway of eclipses. And yeah, I mean, it's quite an interesting place, Arizona, anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
All sorts of things that come up.
UFO activity. Well, I believe I saw a UFO whilst I was out there, and it was on the eclipse night on Friday the 13th. I faced a lot of fears whilst I was out there. I went like hiking in the Arizona desert, surrounded by rattlesnakes and glow in the dark poisonous scorpions. It's not like me, but anyway. And I remember there was me, Maren, and another friend of ours from the retreat. We just went looking for glow in the dark scorpions at night in the part of Arizona desert near Superstition Mountain. And I was so afraid. I felt like we're being watched. We're not supposed to be here. This doesn't feel right. And it was just so much fear. And then out of nowhere, we saw this. It was like an orb. It just felt, it was completely silent, but it's like this spinning light, this orb that kind of just appeared out in the sky. It seemed to come really close. I mean, it wasn't close. You didn't feel like you could touch it, but it was it felt like it was right there. And it was spinning, and then it got sucked back into the sky. I remember like thinking, because I've had so many strange dreams where I've been invited onto spaceships and had conversation with aliens, like very strange dreams. I thought, oh, if it ever happens in real life, I'll be really cool and not afraid at all. And I was so afraid. I was like, oh my God, they're coming for me. I'm not ready. Yeah, so I don't know. It could just been confirmation. I don't know what it was. It may not have been, but it felt very strange. And there was a lot, when the further we went out as well, we could see there seemed to be like these orbs, they look like stars really, and they could well have been stars, I don't know, or something moving, but they seem to keep disappearing into this like gateway in the sky.
It's like it is a portal there, isn't it? I think there's a lot of sightings in that area as far as I know anyway, I think, aren't there?
Yes. Oh yeah, I mean, you're considered the strange one if you don't believe. The amount of people who say, oh yeah, I had a being just come into my house and have a chat with me, or I've seen this. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. So it really was a very transformative time for you there.
Yeah, definitely for me. So that's the first, so first time I've delivered a session abroad. So the main part of that was again using the runes, getting people to chant these old Norse vowels, which are very guttural. So they kind of create resonance in the lower part of the body. And this is something I incorporate into my daily practice. Now they've just helped me by following that guidance to look up these vowels and chant them. They've really helped me just to, I guess, breathe properly. So strengthen these muscles in my tummy. So when I'm talking now, I'm trying to engage these muscles. So it's bringing the energy down. I feel more of a resonance in my heart space, whereas before I was really restricted in this fight or flight feeling, and all the resonance was here in my nose and throat area. So yeah, it's been really interesting just to see this language as almost like a technology that was used, I feel, to keep the body healthy and the energy flowing. Yeah, so we did that. And then another thing I did in Arizona was I went to Antelope Canyon. So part of me was like, I'd love to see the Grand Canyon when I'm out there. But the people in the area were saying, if you want to see a canyon, go to Antelope Canyon. So you needed to hire a Navajo guide because it was on Navajo land. You just can't sort of turn up there. And it was the first time. So I know I've connected to trees before, but it was the first time I felt like rocks or land just sing to me. That's the only way I can describe it. And I've had some pretty strange experiences since then. A lot of health issues, but I think maybe this is like a process that I'm going through, and it all just was instigated by that trip.
Yeah, so it's a real healing process. And I think
Yeah.
that whole thing about, as you're saying, connecting with your heart to things, you know, rather, because we've had, not on here, but another person we listened to a while ago was talking about heartfelt and heart things and connecting to rocks and anything. But you have to do it with your heart. So it's not just observing, it's actually participating. And I think we certainly thought that resonated with us. It was just, yeah, an amazing
It
thing,
def
which is what you're
yeah,
doing, and it can
it
really
definitely
help.
it
Mm,
definitely resonates with me. And there's so much science now, isn't there? So I've kind of come
yeah,
across the Heart Math Institute, and they've done all this research
yeah,
about the power of just connecting to the heart. And I think they can confirm that, is it the heart creates like an energetic field outside of it that can stretch up to 4 meters, and it's influenced by the energetic information it receives in its environment. So for me, I believe when I connect to runes on nature, I
yeah.
think trees are, I believe they're sentient beings, and
Oh, yeah.
they have information, they can send information, and I think it's through these threads or this current, and then we have the imagination of the the third eye that can then interpret this information. But it might be different, even though the information might be the same frequency, we might all interpret it differently depending on our
Mm,
view of
mm.
perception and
Yeah,
things.
and I mean, there has actually been a lot of scientific research now that's come out over the last years that, you know, shown trees aren't just trees, you know, their whole network of roots, that's a different system, but the same thing, that they're all connected and what they do. I mean, it's fascinating how our minds are being opened. You know, I mean, kind of 5, 6 years ago, people would have thought, well, even longer, you know, talking to trees, what a load of nonsense. It's all silly, but we know, a lot of us know now that, you know, there really is a connection there, and to plant anything in nature really, you know, does have
Oh,
this kind of life, doesn't
that's what I have. Like, you see plants behind. I've got plants in every room in my house now. I was not a
it?
plant person before, but I am, yeah, a real
They all
plant.
have their messages to tell you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think with the trees, it's wonderful that you can kind of do that work there. And I think the what was the kind of shamanic part of the trip that you did? Was that taking? I mean, that's all inclusive, I think, in that, isn't it? Doing all of those
Yeah,
things.
I guess I think what happened there, I don't know if this, because I still get confused with the term shamanic myself on what that means, but
Yeah.
definitely felt like I connected into more of like a healing energy there, or connected to something that I could sense more energy when I went into a different space. So I did get to practice. It wasn't Reiki, it felt like Reiki, but something different. So I could say, oh, I'm moving energy around people's body,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
sensing it, rather than channeling something.
Mm, mm,
Just yeah, seeing more things. So I definitely felt that call to do more healing work whilst I was there.
yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, I must say, I think that shamanic term has been used for all sorts of things, hasn't it? You know, I mean, it
I
is,
mean, I guess is that it could be the sounds that I started to make as well. The songs that were, I mean, I call them songs. I don't really know if they are songs, but melodies that were coming through, these tones,
mm,
that could really, I mean, I've never taken any kind of plant medicine or anything like that, so I don't know what a psychedelic experience in that respect feels like, but from my own experience with sound and just channeling
mm,
sounds, or I don't know if I could say channeling, but producing has kind of changed my state of consciousness, and I can feel like I can
mm.
travel to different realms with it.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
been very
that's
interesting,
really been really
and I
drawn
have them
into
all
the,
ourselves out there.
yeah, to the
Mm.
sound part of it, and
Yeah.
yeah, you know, and I guess it's kind of thinking where do all these sounds come from, and what's,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, that's, I guess, particularly when I was guided to sort of look up the Norse vowels. I don't know, it just sort of came from nowhere. So look up how many vowels there were in the Old Norse language, and look up how many consonants there were and are in the English language. So there was 9 vowels and 24 consonants. And I was like, oh, there's 9 rounds on the world tree and there's 24 runes. Is there some connection there?
yeah,
Um, And then I was just sort of guided to create sounds, but with intention. So then it was like tapping into, remember the technologies of the body. So intention is really powerful, especially with, for me, moving out of this fear-based response that I've been in for so long. So I guess like my realm, my fears, my instincts of being kind of leading the show. So I've been wanting to come more like from life from like a heart-centered space. And the guidance I got was like, well, give your body commands, tell your body what you want it to do, tell your body what your intentions are. And since I've been creating these sort of, is it pathways or like flexing that muscle? So every day I'm creating sounds. I'm like, okay, I want to fill this sound with love and I want to send it to this part of my body. Yeah, I've had some pretty, amazing experiences from that. So yeah, just remembering the power of the body, the technologies that we have, and that we just, don't use.
That's really important, isn't it? And it's that part of that kind of take responsibility for your body, for your health. And that's a wonderful way of doing it.
Just helping me to breathe properly. So I didn't realize when people say, do deep breathing exercise, it's really good for you. I've always been like, why? Why is it good for me? What's the evidence behind it? I've just asked why for everything. Drove my parents crazy growing up. But it's just understanding and how the abdominal muscles, I mean, you probably know this, like are so important for the lymphatic system, isn't it? So for draining the gut muscles, used as like a pump just to drain the lymph nodes or the lymphatic system to keep the body healthy. I didn't know that. I've had to learn all this. So it's just basic things. So it's like, oh, that's why it's important. That's why probably I feel a bit more calmer as well now when I'm breathing properly and engaging these muscles.
Yeah, I mean, Linda, who's on the call, she's given us several talks about breath and breathing and how important it is, and she uses that in her yoga practice. And there she is. She might like to say something about that in a minute, but it is vital, isn't it? I mean, people just don't breathe properly, and it's such a big difference.
Unless you do like a yoga practice or you kind of get into meditation, it's like you have to find this yourself rather than learning it as a basic kind of growing up, and depending on what family you come from, I guess.
No, it's true. Does at this point, I'll just see if anybody has any questions to ask Amy or wants to comment on anything. And anybody want to? Oh.
Yeah, I think Richard and Linda.
Well, Richard, I can't hear you. Are you? I can't hear him.
Say about the sleep paralysis.
Oh, there you are.
Hi, Richard.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, when you mentioned sleep paralysis, you're the only person I've come across who's ever mentioned it before, other than the experience I had in the 80s. And interestingly, science obviously calls it sleep paralysis. And after I experienced it, and also saw a wizard in a cave as part of it, but it's a very strange experience, because it's quite worrying sometimes when it happens, because you think there's somebody coming into the room, and the deeper you fall inside yourself, you can, I mean, your experience may be different, but I had this loud buzzing in my ears, but I could really hear clearly someone coming into the room. And it felt a bit menacing, but I still went with it. And then I ended up in this cave with this sort of wizard on this sort of crystal roundabout. And I just kept saying to myself, I am the love, I am the light, I am the love of the universe. And that sort of, and after that, I tried to do it. I was able to sort of enter it a little bit for a few weeks afterwards, but eventually I lost the ability to do it. And then I went to a talk at the Aetherius headquarters in Barnsley, and they read an article from a book, and they said, we want to read you this book, and it's a description of raising the Kundalini. And it was exactly the same as the sleep paralysis experience. So that was all I was just going to add. So you might look into that as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I only know like that, the scientific term, because when I looked it up, there was always an explanation. It's like, oh, it's just a dream state, it's just your imagination. Where for me, I felt like there's definitely something more.
Yeah, but from a metaphysical,
and it is quite scary when it's happened.
Yeah.
So I'll look into that then.
Yeah, look at the Kundalini and see if there's any relevance there, because it certainly was relevant to me what they read.
Wow. Thank you.
Oh, Linda, I think.
Yeah, I managed to unmute now. Sorry, I don't.
Yeah, I wasn't. I
got a new iPad,
didn't
so
mute anybody, so I don't know what happened there. Anyway,
it's a
here
new
you are.
iPad. I had to do something on the screen. I'm not very techy, as you know. Yes, absolutely, Amy. You know, the breath is everything, really. And if your breath is steady, so is your mind, and it's the best way to calm yourself down, really. And most of the nation just don't breathe properly. I don't know if you saw my talk a while ago about breathing, but most people breathe up here, and you have to relearn how to breathe deep down like a baby does, really. Yeah, so it's key to life, but people don't realize how important it is to breathe. So yeah, I'm with you all the way there. It is a massive, it does make a massive difference to us. Yeah, to your psychological self. Yeah.
As another thing to you, Linda, with the breath, I remember I did Kung Fu when I was in Coventry some years ago, and breathing was very important. And I also went into a talk with somebody who actually, as a child, found a book on breathing techniques in a dustbin. And he said, as a child, you just find things like that and you just do it to death and you keep looking at it. Anyway, he practiced all these breathing techniques and realized that he developed a lot of abilities as well. And he used to go around and demonstrate these amazing abilities through using the breath. So like projecting his energy towards other people, or one of his party tricks was laying on a bed of nails and being have a slab of concrete, and someone hit him on the slab and come up completely unharmed. But he said that was all to do with breathing, all to do with the breath.
Power of the breath, yeah.
And of course, breathing from the diaphragm, like you were saying.
I did the fire walk with Anthony Robbins years and years ago. It is years ago. It was about 15 years ago. And we had to do all the stuff with the mind and the breath when we were walking on the coals, and keep saying cool moss, cool moss. It's all the power of your mind, and the breath is connected. And I mean, if we could just teach people, I say this every week, don't I, Christine? Children how to, to learn to do these things just through the life, we'd have less mental health problems, because if people are stressed, if they go to the breath, I'm not saying it's the key to everything, I'm not saying it's going to solve everything, but it would just help so many children in a natural way, rather than everybody just goes to doctors, don't they? And then the doctors haven't got a clue. And, it's just so frustrating because there's so many things we can do in a natural way that,
Breath is fabulous for healing, self-healing.
Absolutely,
if you project your breath to the area of injury, you heal so much quicker.
Absolutely, and I think it can help with pain as well, because I think when you're in pain, you tense up, you don't breathe properly. So if you just direct your breath to that area and breathe away that pain, the mind and the breath it's all connected, and that's what yoga is about, really. It's not just about some postures. Everybody thinks it's about being flexible, but it's not. Not that I'm trying to promote yoga, but it's the most important thing that we can work on is our breath. And
yeah, and it's very much, Amy, what you were saying, about asking your body, talking to your body. It knows, doesn't it?
Listening
exactly
to
what's going on.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think like what you were saying, Linda, if we could teach children this, because obviously I do work predominantly with young people experiencing mental health challenges. The thing that's always coming up is this sense of powerlessness. It's like they give their power away. I mean, that was me. Like, I felt like I couldn't make decisions about my health. I had to rely on doctors. I had to rely on family. And that's what I see with young people. They don't have the words to express what's going on for them. They've not had time to figure it out themselves and listen to the bodies. They've just been told what's happening. And I think something like breath, just realizing the power of their own body, would hopefully help with that. I think that's what breaks my heart the most, is just this growing sense of powerlessness. It's like I have no power at all, and I have to find somebody else to say, when actually if you remember how powerful you so that's what I have tried to do. Obviously I've got to be very careful with the language, because I used to work for Leeds Mind, so I meant charity. So for me it was all talking about why this was really important, helping young people, well, hopefully supporting young people to help themselves to figure out discernment, so what felt right for them, even if there was doubts. It's just like, well, let's just explore that, just explore and find your own way to communicate what's going on for you, because I think that's something that concerns me the most, is the impact labels are having, particularly on people with mental health diagnoses. The amount of labels, whether you have a neurodiversity as well, it's like you're just becoming these labels, and it limits your view of your magnificent self, I believe.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, language.
Well, like they're putting everybody in an autistic box now. Everybody's got autism or ADHD or something, haven't they? I mean, what's happening?
Medicalising.
Yeah,
medicalising unique and just natural responses to living in a very strange world.
Absolutely, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Very sad. But Amy, you're doing a grand job, and you're bringing all these new things in to help people to understand, what
I hope. But it has been amazing to see like young people in their own way rebelling against what is, even though some have gone through extreme struggles and are really struggling. They've got this sense, especially those who are deemed the naughty kids, like there's something not right. I don't agree with you. So there's like this rising, what they call teenage defiance, just the thought, no, I'm not going to school. No, I'm not doing that. So it's just, there's like a rebellion or something going on. So it's shaking things up a bit.
I don't blame them not to go to school these days, though, do you? What they're teaching them, it's like,
yeah, we could talk about that for hours, couldn't we?
I know, Sorry, going off track.
No, it's true. But Amy, I can just imagine if you could help some of these young people and take them on a wellness walk in the woods. I mean, how marvelous would that be, for them to just connect and to not worry and to not be afraid, and then you could start with your sounds that you're exploring, which is fascinating, because you were saying you were working with this solfeggio frequency. I don't know, maybe you can explain, because I still haven't got it, I don't think.
No, and I've just sort of come to it myself. Again, it was guidance I received in a dream, because I've been going through my own health issues since I got back from Arizona. So this like extreme pain in my shoulders and my arms, and I've had limited mobility. And 9 keeps coming up, so the 9 vowels, like these 9 sounds. And then a dream I had was look up the 9 the solfeggio frequencies. So I could have come across them at some point, because I actually have one on a tuning fork, so the 528, which I use. I didn't realize consciously that was a solfeggio frequency. But apparently, and Steve, you might know more about this, because they're linked to Gregorian like chants. So it was a method of helping monks to read or remember tones in music and hymns back in like the 10th and 11th century. And so this monk basically created a tone to the first 3 letters of this phrase, like is it the hymn to St. John the Baptist? So I'm probably not doing a very good job at describing it, but you can look it up online. But so it's basically these 6 tones that they used to sing, and the intervals between each tone, they use pure intonation. So it basically means, it's like in numerology, it's like a whole number. So it just basically means that the intervals just sound nicer. There's something the sound does because of its numerical value. Whereas today we don't use this sort of interval of changing in tones. We use I've written it down here, the 12-tone equal temperament, so which means the interval is the 12th root of 2, whereas in pure intonation it was a whole number. So it just sounds different. And then these solfeggio frequencies, it was a herbalist, I think it was called Dr. Joseph Poello. He started looking up in the 1970s, and he found that there was this code, apparently in chapter 12 in the Bible, this code, this repeating code that kept coming up, that linked to these frequencies in this hymn that this monk created. And these frequencies all sort of added up to hertz, that equaled 3, 6, and 9. So it's the power of 3, 6, so they've been encoded. And apparently there's been more research into it. So people who listen to these frequencies on a regular basis, it can have like really healing benefits to the body. So I have just ordered the 9 that because he discovered 3 more. They call them the 3 missing solfeggio frequencies. So there was 6 that was used by this monk. But yeah, I didn't realize I have one. So it's the 528, which is, they call it the miracle tone or the love frequency, and it can help apparently alter DNA.
These are tuning forks, aren't they?
Yeah, we can tuning forks. You can actually, so more people as well can tune. So you can actually find it online. So is it Paul McCartney? He tuned his piano to 528 hertz for a song, one of the Beatles songs, and it just sounds amazing. So it's like, I think even the Beatles, people know about the impact these frequencies can have. So I use them every morning. Well, this one in particular, every morning.
Because the frequencies that we use in the West, in Western music and stuff, is something 900 and something. It's a different frequency. And that 528 is the frequency we should really be using and making our music with. But interestingly, sound is something, it's almost like a forgotten art. I mean, we're beginning to understand it a little bit more now. But of course, it was used for lifting as well, lifting objects and moving things around, but also for healing. There are a lot of people that actually use the pitch of their human voice to aim sound into an area of body to act as healing as well. So all these techniques are there. We just got to rediscover them.
Absolutely. I think
sorry, Amy, your line's gone funny.
This pain that I have in my shoulder every morning, I wake up like all tense and a lot of pain. I sometimes feel like these. Yeah. Can you hear me? Am I back yet?
Well, we couldn't hear the first bit you said because
Hello?
the line broke. It was frozen.
Oh, no. Am I back? Can you hear me now?
Kind of back.
Yeah, you're sort of back now.
Oh no, have I gone?
You can switch your camera
Am
off.
I back now? Sorry.
Yes, okay. Yeah. See how that goes. Can you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Sometimes that helps a bit with the.
I can hear you, but can't see you.
Yeah. But can you hear me? Okay,
I can hear you. Yes, we'll switch you back on in a minute.
But I'm just a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, oh gosh, just as I get into sound, is my connection going to go?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How that can happen.
Yeah, but absolutely. So Richard, you were saying you can send sound into parts of the body. So every morning, so like Linda, I use my breath. Sometimes it can take me an hour just to really relax my body and sort of try to make this feeling of gratitude like the overriding feeling, and just sort of dampen that feeling of fear that I can sometimes have. And that's when I find the tuning forks or these frequencies work better for me. So I'll sort of tune or turn my body to 528 or try to. So 528 is turned to the key or the note C, so like middle C. And then I sort of tried to do pure intonation, just sort of turning down and turning up, and then create a sound and just send it with intention into parts of my body, and it really does ease the pain. Doesn't last constantly, and then it kind of comes back and I have to keep working on it, but definitely that. And something else I was guided to, and I don't know, I don't know if there's any kind of evidence to this, but what I was guided to is that when you're hearing these frequencies or using them, like set the intention to send them to the water in your body, because water can hold memory or it can store it. So there's something significant there. But sometimes when I imagine sending it to the water in my body, and sometimes imagining these patterns, so you can actually find them online. There's these 9 solfeggio frequencies, and there's this guy who is into somatics, and you can actually see the image of these frequencies and these beautiful sort of what's the word?
Did you come across I think Massimo Emoto, the Japanese man?
Yes, yeah.
He played classical music to water and the lovely crystals formed. And when he played harsh music, you just got a mess.
Yeah, yeah. So it's amazing, isn't it? Just like the sensitivity of water. So, and what we like 70% water, so in our bodies. So yeah, I just feel like
Adults are about that sort of 70-ish, or just under.
Yeah, so there's that, I guess, connection there. So yeah,
Also, if you think about your emotions and the things that you feel in your self-talk and all those sorts of things, you're a chemical factory after that, and you're actually putting your feelings on your chemistry, and that's affecting you in all those sorts of ways that you might actually then exhibit as ailments, as physical feedback to the thoughts that you're having on, you know. It's all very interlinked, isn't it? Very holistic.
Oh, massively, yeah.
Shall we try and see you again, Amy, if you want to try your camera again? There you are. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how often these things happen when we're trying to talk about something and it doesn't work. But I think we tried before the sounds, but they don't seem to come out very well on Zoom, so I don't know if we can really go through.
You have to use original sound on Zoom in order to project sounds through it.
Yeah.
Original sound, is there a way?
You have to actually, you have to turn it on when you're actually not logged into Zoom. You look up, you go into your account.
All right, we have to do that
now,
another time.
Once you actually put it on, you never have to go back in that way again. And you'll get a little sign on the Zoom window thereafter, and it says enable original sound, and you can choose to turn it on or off.
That's a good tip, thanks.
That is a good tip.
What does that do for you?
Well, we use it for piano playing over Zoom and things like that, and musicians use it because otherwise it just breaks up. You don't hear any sound, so you have to enable original sound. But unfortunately, Zoom doesn't automatically put that on, and then you can turn it off. You actually have to activate it in your account, and once you've done this, you'll have a button somewhere on your screen or in the more section if you're using a phone, and it will say enable original sound, and then you can hear music and sounds clearly.
That's great. I'll have to look into that. But each person has to do that individually, presumably.
Yeah, you have to do it when you log into your own Zoom account. And once you've switched it on there, it will always be available to you, but you have to do it there first.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. That would be useful, Amy, because we tried to do the sounds, but it wouldn't do it. But you're developing this new healing modality, you were saying, and the vocal freedom technique. So does that encompass all of these things, or do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Basically just encompasses everything that I've basically mentioned. So using intention, particularly like listening abilities of the body. So I actually, as a way of, so I'm basically trying to teach my brain it's relevant to listen to these subtle energies coming from my body or from, you know, out of my environment. Because I think my brain has learned that it's relevant to listen to my fear-based feelings, because that's what's kept me alive, or when it goes into this survival state. So it's like I'm trying to retrain the brain. Okay, yeah, they're relevant, but maybe listening from a different space is more relevant right now. So yeah, so it's just using these technologies of the body, creating these new pathways within listening, using the breath, and creating resonance. So as a way to create subtle energies in the body, and for me to train my brain like these, because it's how I receive information sometimes intuitively, like little tingling feelings. It could be just like a slight nudge in my tummy area, which in the past I've easily dismissed. Like my brain's gone, that's not relevant, I'm just going to forget that. When really, if I'd have held on to that, my life probably would have been a little bit different. I made some different choices. So as I've been doing this, these little nudges have been getting stronger, because it's like my brain's like, oh, you're telling me this is relevant, so I'm just going to hold here for a moment, and it feels bigger, if that makes sense. So one of the ways I've been training my brain to do this is by creating resonance in different parts of my body and just moving it, and then just watching it move. If if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah, helped me just to, and another thing I realised, and Linda, you probably know this as well, is like when you create sound, and sometimes I don't know with breathing, but definitely sound, it's connected, the vocal cords are connected to the vagus nerve, so that can really create like a relaxing feeling in the body. So if you're stimulating the vagus nerve with that intention, like, oh, my body's calm, I'm relaxed, it sends signals to the brain, I'm relaxed. So I'm doing everything I can just to relax my body. But yeah, creating these sounds. So, and that's what I do in my workshops. So I do have to like warn people at the beginning of my workshops. It's like I might be making you make some very strange sounds, but just go with it. You're in a safe space. But obviously I don't push people if they don't want to. And definitely for the sounds in the tummy, I use some of the old Norse vowels. So like or, so really guttural. So you really have to sort of contract the gut muscles and just holding that for a while, like I can feel, yeah, definitely my hips sometimes. Then I move up to the heart. So for me, the vowel sound A, so just holding the A for a long time, I can feel that in my chest. And then up to R, I, and E. So you can actually feel it vibrating at the crown area.
Fantastic.
So just moving.
I think
so, yeah,
the whole kind of chanting and that, I mean, that there's people who've done it just say it's amazing.
Yeah, it's nothing new. I think it's just like finding a way that works for you. It's like people have been doing this for how long, but it's just finding a way that works for you and then infusing that with just intention and love. And yeah.
Well, I can imagine in a kind of group situation like your wellbeing workshops and that, when everybody's doing it, people don't feel so self-conscious because they might think, oh, I don't want to make those funny sounds.
Yeah,
actually, when everybody's doing it.
Yeah, you get a few laughs to begin with, but once people relax into it and then they're like, oh, I can feel that, or I feel different now. I feel more.
That's interesting.
And you can actually see the evidence of it. It's so yeah, doing that, and then just with songs. So when I sometimes I'll tune myself. I'll try to. I don't know if I'm actually doing it properly, but it feels like I am, to like a 528 hertz. When I kind of get myself into the relaxed state, just to like melodies sort of come through. It's either I'm making these melodies up or they're coming from somewhere. First one, before I got into the frequencies, the first one I remember, because I play the piano and sometimes I compose music, so sometimes these melodies just sort of come from nowhere. It feels like from outside of me. And one came a couple of years ago and I just kept repeating it and I got the urge to sing it. And when I sang it, I had this image of me stood next to a tree, and I was like, oh, this tree is singing to me and I'm singing this tree song. And that's what it felt like. And every time I'm feeling anxious now, I just hum that melody. Calms me.
Did you see any of the piano on telly, Amy? About the piano, the thing. Did you see that boy Michael, who just made lovely sounds when he played and made his own sounds up?
Yeah, I was like, that's me. I mean, I don't sound as good as that. I don't really claim to be a singer at all. But I was like, yeah, I thought that was amazing, because I was like, oh, I do something similar. So it's
really
amazing.
Ethereal and went right through you, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah.
The power of sound, it's wonderful. And can you do this work one-to-one if anybody wanted to have a session with you, or probably be better in person, wouldn't it? Because
definitely in person. I think it's definitely something I'm going into. So I think the health issues that I've talked about have come because I'm going through a transition. So going into different work, and I do think it involves this. So I'd love to offer more one-to-one if it's something people are interested in. But I do currently readings, but I'm looking for a space where I can do this kind of work in. Yeah, because it's when you're with the person, it's easier, I think, for me.
That's great. I think the sound healing, I mean, different people do it in different ways, but there's such a lot of sound healing going on everywhere. But it's a different way, isn't it? They're using gongs and bowls and things, and the way you're doing it is quite different, I think. And it's a bit more personalised, I imagine.
I like to think, because I'm really keen to, because I know there's what's going on a lot in the kind of community I'm in is this thing called light language. So people say they're channeling something side of themselves or from different beings. And I don't know, for me, I'm just really keen to empower people. Like, you've got it all here. You've got, if you use your intention, you can create, you know, use the breath, you can create these sounds for your own healing. I think that's what I'm doing rather than channeling something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I know when you were here the other day, you were meditating and singing, and I mean, it was such a beautiful sound. I thought, wow, it almost felt I've never heard that before, and where's it come from? It was amazing. It was really lovely.
No, well, thank you. So now I still get a bit. There's only 3 people that have heard me sing, and there's you and Alan and a friend of mine. I'm still growing the confidence, but I think now that I've kind of got over that, I'm not meant to sound like an opera singer, as long as I can hold a tone or a tune.
It
was brilliant, Amy, what you did here with meditating and the tones, the frequencies that you hit certainly did resonate.
Did they?
About
Okay.
the chakras, you know, step by step, all the way through. Just a little comment on the 9 that you mentioned, the 9 solfeggio frequencies and the 9 vowels, and the 5 to 8 and the 3 6 9. They all resonate with the sort of Pythagorean 9 magic square, with the 5 to 8 being on the astral plane, the 3 6 9 being on the mental plane, and the 1 4 7 being on the spiritualized physical side. Somebody who put those frequencies together probably understood the bigger picture. And Nikola Tesla, I think, when he was talking about free energy, and he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, if we only understood the magic of the numbers 3, 6, and 9, we would understand the energy of the universe. So, and that's the mental energy, of course.
Understand.
Creative.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, and you're
doing a grand job.
Yeah, fantastic.
On the edge of something totally pioneering, which is just so needed in these times. It really is, as you've told us, the amount that we were saying earlier, mental health problems with young people, with any people, is just horrendous at the moment. And
I think
the worry, the fear, the anxiety that people have is just...
It's the fear, isn't it? I think. Sorry, say that again, Alan.
It's just what I sense when you were here and what you were talking about, and the vocal freedom that you're looking at is really helping people connect with themselves and realize there are these different levels within themselves that open doors to cosmic consciousness and and understanding why they're here now, kind of thing.
Yeah, hopefully. That's something that for me, once I started getting into this, creating sounds, it's helped me realize or believe that which I was searching for or trying to become or raise my vibration to be, it's already there. And it's like, for me, it's just lowering the sort of fear. And I feel like to create the momentum behind this song of fear that's all around us, it takes a lot of energy. I feel it's like it's constantly being pumped out. They're creating new ways to keep it around us or within us. If that feels right? But
absolutely,
when I started like just reducing, like I'm actually safe. I think that's for me. If these sounds can just help people feel safe and know that they're free and that they're loved, and that's the true essence of their being, and they don't have to try to reach to become something. So,
absolutely.
Super.
No, it's just so interesting. Anything else you'd like to tell us, and then I'll ask if anyone else has any more questions. But it's just amazing. And I think on the invitation on the Zoom link, Amy's website was there, so if anybody wants to contact Amy, you can go through her website. And has anybody got any other questions?
Could I just I got to go in a moment, actually. Thank you for your talk, Amy. I just wanted to, you mentioned in passing, you said that like the rune characters have numerical values. So I'd never thought of that, but it sounds as if like there's a kind of like Scandinavian equivalent of gematria, which I know Alan has studied fairly recently. You know, that each of the Greek letters have various numerical values, and so linguistically you can take a phrase and all the numbers add up to a certain value. There's a whole science in this, which is pretty abstruse. But it sounds as if there might be a kind of runic equivalent of that, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I believe so. So for my research into it, it feels like the runes have a connection to the Hebrew alphabet or the Hebrew knowledge, because there was gematria there. Is that how you explained it? But also then these symbols that they found when, is it the exiled Hebrews, they came over to the West and then they merged with the different cultures. And I think a lot of, especially with the world tree, and this language and the numerical value to these symbols came from that. But so like your reoccurring spells or carvings of these runes, they generally add up to 3, 6, and 9 as well. So yeah. Like like Alu, for example, that's been found on loads of pendants, and that's Anzus, Lagus, and Urus, which actually is a rune for the mind, the rune for the emotion, and the rune for the physical. So it's a bit like thoughts and emotion create physical reality, and that adds up to 3, I think. One of them. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's like this repeated pattern.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else want to? Oh, there's Robert. Hello, Robert. Hi.
Hello.
Seen you for a while.
Yeah, no, indeed, yes, been absent. But I just wanted to go. Sorry, it's been a little bit woo-woo, perhaps for some. But Amy, you mentioned seeing
Yes.
unidentified objects in Phoenix. You've also mentioned pains and also some other health issues. This is going to sound a little bit out of it, but when you encounter some of these phenomena, you also have physical effects. You can have physical effects, and also you can raise your connection on like a 5D level, which is more heart-centered, more feeling, and less bodily. But when you get the less bodily, sometimes you can actually get physical problems. So maybe worth correlating back when you started to have these problems and whether or not it was actually linked in to when you had this connection. And also at the same time, did you feel, apart from seeing, did you feel anything when you saw the phenomenon?
Yeah, that's interesting because they're physical, especially with my shoulder. So, I mean, I don't want to bore everybody with it because I spoke to Hannah Christine a lot, but I physically couldn't use my arms, and the only position I could get that was comfortable for my left arm was my hand over my heart space. So that's really interesting. But it all happened after I came back from Arizona, and when I was there, I definitely felt like songs were coming through. I did have strange dreams, but for me, it was more about when I walked through Antelope Canyon, I felt like the canyon was saying to me, I'm going to show you all those beliefs. You feel like they're real, but they're not. There's just so much momentum behind them. And it were like, they went like this in my body. And I don't know if I've come back home and I'm processing it.
Wow.
If that makes any sense. But I think a lot of it has to do with, like, I've had to really face some deep-rooted limiting beliefs, I think, since I've come back.
But it's worth correlating the two, because you'll probably find, and canyons, don't forget that in terms of our ancient visitors, they used to use canyons a lot, and especially if there's a canyon there that's on a reservation that's not generally been trawled over or looked at or had its energies interrupted with, you can also find that can be part and parcel of the same thing. So basically just put it together and sort of think, oh, when did that happen and whatever, and then go back and you'll find that you can revisit and get as near as possible to the event horizon of when the physical problems happen, because that is also the event horizon of the increase in 5D energy.
Okay.
And it's useful to go back to then be able to tune in to that and increase it yourself.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
'cause
great.
it's strange. It's been a wild journey with it all.
and it's not over, just beginning. Yeah, it is. I mean, that's true with all these energies and different things. We do sometimes get physical things happening. Yeah, but it's good to know how you can help yourself then move as you're discovering your own way of doing it. Yeah, that's great.
When did your sleep paralysis experience begin, Amy? Was that after that event as well, or was that just more recent or ongoing? Or
So when did my sleep paralysis start? Did you ask?
yeah, because I one of the things that triggered mine was that I was actually working with a theatre group in Germany at the time, and it was very exhausting physically. And when I got back, my body was physically exhausted, but I was buzzing with the experience and mentally so alert. And that combination of physical tiredness and mental alertness actually triggered that experience in me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've not thought about it in that way, but I know for me it started when I was 15 after my nana died. So there was a death in the family, and then after that I just started with sleep paralysis, and it's been pretty constant since then. Yeah. So that's interesting. I've not thought of it in that way before.
Great. Well, that's
thank
been
you.
so interesting, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and what you're doing. And it's just so exciting to know all of us on this call and people who are here are doing wonderful work with people and helping them. And that's just amazing. We need to keep going.
I think it's
Yeah,
brilliant.
well,
You've
thank you for
tuned
having
into
me.
all those things, Amy. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah,
Oh.
it is. Lovely. Anybody else like to say anything or before we close? Time's whizzing by, as it does. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Amy. She's gone. Where's she gone?
Right, am I back? Sorry, my connection keeps going.
Once again, yeah, it keeps saying it's a low bandwidth or something, but mostly it's been fine, so that's okay. Great. Well, it's been lovely to see you all, and see you all again next time. Our next Bridge Wellbeing meeting is in person in July, but then in August we'll be back on Zoom and see what we can come up with then. Something wonderful, something weird and wonderful that we like. What did you say, Robert? Woo woo. Nothing's too woo woo for this group. We love it. So,
well, you know, I'm always a bit circumspect about that because I get invited to give talks to various people, and I've got another one coming up. I said to them, how woo woo is the audience? And you went, what do you mean? And I thought, oh, this is not good. So I think I'll just stick to vibrations, solfeggio and various other things.
Oh yes, you've got all yours.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, sometimes I put them on boom boxes so that basically they can actually then the sound is amplified from boom boxes, so you get a good resonance from them as well. But it's really quite funny because your groups, Christine, there always seems to be this wonderful openness. And thank you, Amy. That's a fascinating story since, especially when we last spoke, which must be probably a couple of years ago now. So yeah, you've taken everything and shaken the tree and moved on. Well done.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Brilliant. Sue sends her apologies as well. She lost connection, but she says thank you too. But yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I can send her the recording. Yes, anybody. A few people apologised, so I'll send the recording to them. Okay, then I'll see you all again at some point.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks, everybody.
Happy things.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Oh, just it's just us. Now he's gone as well. Okay. I thought he might stay on to say something.